So you win a prize for sticking around till the end of the day. And the prize is you get to listen to the best panel of the day. No, that's probably, well, it might be true. It could be true. I think we should get going. We want to wrap a little before 4. And I want you to have the benefit of hearing from my friends up here who are doing really important housing innovations. So I'm just kind of vamping here. My name's Margaret Van Vliet. I'm an independent consultant, but I'm here kind of just because I've become an advocate for and a student of modular housing and its potential, and also very interested in mass timber applications. So if you're interested in that, we may weave a little of that in today. I'm also the former head of Oregon Housing and Community Services. I served under Governor Kitzhaber and Governor Brown for a little bit. And so it's great to be, I used to get to travel the state all the time, and I haven't done that in many years. So anyway, it's great to see you all, and thank you for your interest in this subject. We have a good panel. They're going to introduce themselves, and you can see their names and affiliations. Let me just very quickly kind of set a little context that I think is important for where we are in Oregon and Southern Oregon in particular. So you all are experts. Nobody needs to tell you the statistics about how far behind we are in housing production, and we're not here to point fingers or assign blame. But I think what we can agree is, I hope, we ought to try some new things because the status quo really isn't working. And it's particularly painful in this region of Oregon because y'all bore the brunt of the 2020 wildfires, right? The state lost 4,200 homes in one terrible weekend. Think how many times we celebrate 50 units opening and 100 units opening and 12 units opening. It takes a long time to build all those units, and we lost a lot in a terrible weekend. 2,600 of those units were in this part of the state, and we are far from recovered. So I think those are the reasons that have really driven me to get interested in and learn what I can about, and along the way, if I can earn a consulting contract, I'll do it, but I don't need to. That I'm very interested in how do we scale up the use of modular, manufactured, and other housing technologies that can make our homes safer, more energy efficient, more affordable, and just frankly go faster. And so you're going to hear from some experts who've been trying a variety of things, and then we're going to just kind of give them each an opportunity to introduce themselves, their organizations, and their work. And then I'll kind of fire some questions at them and see how that goes. And if we want to do some audience participation, we can do that as well. So with that, I'm going to start with, who am I starting with? Am I going to start with Kendra because she's here? I think I am. Kendra Cox, my new best friend, Blazer Industries. Go ahead, Kendra.
My name is Kendra with Blazer Industries. We're a modular building manufacturer located in Almsville, just outside of Salem. We've been in business since 1976, so we've been building mainly commercial modular since then, and through the years we've built housing, and we're back in the housing business thanks to the state of Oregon. We are one of the recipients of the Modular Housing Development Fund grant, which allows us to further develop capacity to build low and middle income housing and disaster recovery housing. With that grant, we're improving our factory, investing in technology to help us improve efficiency, equipment upgrades, and we're developing a residential team, which includes an in-house team of estimators and BIM managers, along with working with architects, contractors, and consultants. And we're also building 3 prototypes that will be on display at our factory in Almsville through the end of the year.
Hi, my name is Rosie Andalon. I am the Real Estate Development Director at Casa of Oregon. Casa of Oregon is a nonprofit organization that develops affordable housing and programs for low-income populations throughout the state of Oregon. We have 4 main lines of business, which we have the multifamily sector. Then we have the manufacturer and MHCDC, which I am horrible with the acronym. Manufacturer Home Cooperative. Thank you. Manufacturer Housing Cooperative Development. They keep changing it on me, sorry. And then we have the loan fund, which is a community loan fund. It's a CDFI. And we have our FAIL program, which is the IDA program. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Andrew Shepard. My name is Karen Chase, and unfortunately, Andrew is ill, and Andrew is the lead for our residential housing program at Energy Trust of Oregon. So I found out last night that I'll be sitting here for him, but it's okay. My real job is I work statewide for the Energy Trust of Oregon. I'm the senior manager for community strategies, and I'm located, my home is about 5 miles outside of Cave Junction, so I'm centrally located for the state, and I'm happy. I really am happy to be here. I do have a background in both housing and energy, so I think in fact, one of my former directors is Margaret. So, here we are. I feel like I've got a little bit of performance anxiety now, but it's, and I also want to point out our staff. We have an amazing staff here from Energy Trust, and I'm going to have you stand when I call you out. Gretchen Grist. So for those of you who have multifamily housing, okay, come on. You're taking up my time here. For those of you that have multifamily housing projects existing and you want to make them better, Gretchen is the person that you want to see. And then next I'm going to go to Angeli O'Connor. If you have any commercial buildings, communities buildings in your current if it's new construction in multifamily or new buildings, Angeli's been in this business longer than I have been, and she knows everything. Use her. She's really good. She is really good. And then next I will go to Nikki. Nikki, if you'll stand. Nikki is, thank you. She's new to our programming. She is the person that you want to see if you have manufactured homes that need to be replaced. We have a manufactured housing replacement program, and Nikki is the person. You probably want her to stand up again now, right? Because you didn't really catch her the first time. All right, there's Nikki. And then Heather McNeil. Heather is our Southern Oregon outreach manager, so kind of for everything else, if you have questions, she's the person that you want to talk with. And I truly am looking forward to this panel. I kind of set Andrew up on it because he's so much smarter than I am about residential housing, but philosophically, I am really into this subject. And I may not have a lot of technical background, but I have opinions about almost anything.
And I'm Terry McDonald, and I was the director of St. Vincent de Paul for about 40 years in Eugene, and stepped back in that role about 2 years ago. And since then, started up another nonprofit called Hope Community Corporation, which manufactures mobile homes.
Did you have any employees you wanted to call out? No, I'm kidding. So a range of experience, a range of kind of perspectives here today. And I will say some of you, I saw you at our small tables during the networking time this morning. And I know there's a lot of interest in energy in kind of what this subject is. And so one thing that came up at those table conversations is, what's the difference between modular and manufactured? This question was not on your prep list, sorry guys, but But I know that Kendra and probably all of you can answer that. I think it's important to understand that factory-built housing comes in lots of different flavors, but the two main types are manufactured and modular. And they're referred to other things in the state building code statutes. But Kendra, could you just quickly tell folks the kind of what the difference is?
I'll speak to modular, and then maybe Terry can speak
There
to
we go.
manufactured. Modular buildings are built to International Building Code or Oregon Residential Specialty Code. So they're permanent buildings attached to a foundation. Most of our projects are not built or delivered on a chassis. And one of the big differences also is that we can build almost anything. I hate to say that, but we can build everything from a single module ADU to a multi-piece, multi-family project. So there's a lot more flexibility with modular construction. It's also a bit more expensive.
And as she said, this is the difference between us largely is that I have a chassis underneath of what I do. And that chassis makes it a vehicle instead of a attached home to a foundation. The codes are about the same for the construction, so it's 2x6 on standard construction, the usual stuff associated with the codes. And that's because of how HUD has been changing the codes upward for the last 20 years, especially this year. So it's basically the only big difference is modular definitely has a foundation. Manufactured housing does not have to have a foundation. It can either be skirted or else with a foundation.
Thank you. There's a history of sort of stigma attached to manufactured housing, what we used to call mobile homes, and prior to that we called them trailers. But today's manufactured homes are nothing like that in terms of their energy efficient, they're high quality, they're built to last, and they appreciate, which wasn't always the case with the old style of mobile homes. This is about innovation, and so I know, because I know your organizations, you all are innovating in new and different ways, and so I want to ask Rosie, kind of what's the innovation at Casa of Oregon that you're really proud of, that you think people should know about, and that maybe we should think about sort of scaling and taking up a notch?
So one of the aspects of our work I'm most proud of is the community-based organizations and creating, preserving affordable housing. We work with a local partner, which is Coalición Fortaleza, they're located in Medford. And we work with them to host several community meetings where residents had a say in everything from landscaping all the way to the use of a community facility or open space, as well as the interior layout of the units themselves. We wanted residents to feel empowered when it came to their community, and for this project, we really tried to make sure that they could find a place they can call home, and they felt that a place that they can actually, belong. For example, we also did a multifamily housing project in Medford, which is Camino Colibri. It's 34 units of affordable housing for agriculture workers. We also did a renovated Talent Mobile Estates, which has now been renamed to Talent Cooperative Community. I know. That project was actually devastated by the wildfires in 2020, and we brought in 77 new homes there. Some of them, we had 72 homes that we were purchased, and we had about 3 or 4 that were actually donated. We had a couple from Hope, and then we had 2 from the Mas Casitas program, which is a mass timber. So we, during the community engagement, we went ahead and asked the people, and we also involved the children as to what the features they wanted, and they wanted obviously a playground and a place they could play safely, and it's also close to home. One of the things that once a project or once a cooperative or resident turns into once a manufactured housing park is turned into a resident-owned community, the residents end up becoming an advocate for the community because they start influencing and trying to help out. Oh gosh, I am stuck, sorry. Yes, they get empowered and they start running the cooperative as a business. That's what I'm proud of. Thank you.
Great. That's great. Karen, you're doing a lot. You and I have known each other a long time.
We have.
What's old is new again, or what's, never mind.
Really, this has been great to even be in this room with so many amazing people. And it's been nice to see folks that I haven't seen for a very long time. So I'm really grateful for Housing Oregon for even putting this on, and here in Grants Pass. So I think I'll answer that question around what's innovative for Energy Trust by just saying Energy Trust itself is an extremely innovative event. There are no other states that have anything like this. Vermont has something similar to Energy Trust, but this is not routine. Other states don't have an Energy Trust of Oregon, where customers of the investor-owned communities, and for us here in Southern Oregon, that's Avista Gas and Pacific Power, and elsewhere in the state, it's Cascade Natural Gas, it's Northwest Natural Gas, it's Portland General Electric. So these investor-owned utilities, their customers are our customers. If you're paying into those utilities, you have access to our funding. It's your funding, and you should take advantage of it. And so our organization itself is innovative, but I want to just bring up one thing, and it kind of relates to what Rosie was just talking about with the fire recovery. And I got to be Energy Trust's lead statewide for the 2020 fire recovery. So I saw the LTRGs, I saw the recovery from one border from the northern border to the southern border. And in our process of finding avenues in energy efficiency, we suggested that there may be building measures, things that we could do in homes that made them more fire resilient, but that also have an energy efficiency component. Because if there is a win for energy efficiency, we can help support that. And in fact, our research found 3 different incentives that we'd never had before that make homes more resilient. And we were able to offer that. We are not government, and we are not the utilities. We're an independent 501c3 nonprofit. We are flexible, and probably our greatest asset really is our people. There's not a day that goes by that people in my organization are not trying to be innovative, are not trying to find the thing that they can do to get better, to serve us better. And I've been here almost 11 years. It's probably the longest I've stayed at any job, and I'm extremely grateful for that, because I get to dream up new ideas and bounce them around, and almost always, if it works out, if there's energy savings to be associated with that, I get the green light to move it forward. And I'm extremely appreciative. Some of you that I've known for a while, here's Josephine County Housing Council. I don't know if you know Tammy and Kim. They are doing housing development for the first time in decades. That's innovative. That's happening right here in Josephine County. So there's really a lot to be grateful for right now, despite the things that maybe we're not grateful for. We all have to move this bar forward together. If you have ideas around energy efficiency, renewable energy for housing development, you want somebody to bounce your ideas around with, dream with me.
Thank you, Karen. Terry, talk a little bit about your factory. Not everybody knows what HOPE is.
I was hoping that we could let Karen do her shtick, but I'll do mine.
He didn't really talk. He told me not to call on him, but
No. You're serious? Yeah, you'd like to tell your story? All right. So St. Vincent de Paul, over the last number of years that I was in charge of it, acquired 9 mobile home parks with about 350 units in it. And the difference between what Casa of Oregon does and what St. Vincent de Paul does is that Casa does the resident-owned communities. And those resident-owned communities are the ones where the tenants become the owners of the park. There are parks, especially in rural parts of Oregon, that are sometimes well past their usable life, and that they're inhabited by people that are very, very low income, and the infrastructure is failing and so forth. And so they don't really qualify for a resident-owned community. But having said that, we do want to preserve those parks. And so that's what we have done over the years, is acquired 9 of those parks. The common thread of all those parks is that the units in them are almost all pre-76 units. That's the old HUD standard ones. Yes, sir. Pardon me? I know you can, and so can I. So St. Vincent de Paul has been in the unhappy position of having to replace those units often. Generally, that's attrition of about 5% of the portfolio per year. So if you think about 350 units, it's about 15 to 20 units per year go out of their useful life. Well, we don't want to replace them with just any units because we want to make them long-term and affordable housing for people that are especially low income, because these are often low-income parks. So we hit on the strategy is what we ought to do is we ought to manufacture the product itself. And so we set up a separate corporation called Hope Community Corporation. And the goal on that was to, number one, make sure that the units that came out were extremely energy efficient. And so they are all NEEM certified. The second part was we wanted to make sure that they are definitely very, very fire resilient, because that's a common thread that we have almost throughout the state everywhere, is that there's a lot of fires, and we're moving into that season now. The third one was that we wanted the product to be an affordable product, and so by setting it up as a not-for-profit corporation that has no debt and basically is hiring a second chance staff and also works with local high schools to take advantage of the high schools' community programs associated with industrial technologies, we can make sure that we keep the price of the product down to an affordable level, and also to create a reservoir of housing for us. So at any given time, we're trying to have a reservoir of about 10 units available of various types, either the single or double, single wide or double wide, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, or 3 bedroom, so that we can deploy those in our own situations, but also be able to deploy throughout the state when there's an emergency. So if there's a circumstance where you need to have really quick housing out there that's long-term instead of the old FEMA housing, this is a product that can be deployed almost immediately. So that's kind of the story.
Thank you, Terry. Kendra, let's come back to you and talk a little bit about, it's fairly recent. You mentioned that Blazer has gotten back into the residential market. Talk about sort of some challenges you've had to overcome in kind of engaging with the development teams and the construction teams. Like, we talk about it as being potentially faster and quote unquote easier, but it's not just always smooth sailing. So would you talk a little bit about kind of what people should know about the process of using modular housing?
We're learning a lot this year. The grant has enabled us to develop a team and invest in architects and consultants, which a company like ours, we've been around for a long time, but we're also, we operate debt-free. Manufacturing is tricky. It's tricky to run a manufacturing facility for many years without going into debt or bankruptcy. As we know, our goal is to stay in business. So to invest in research and development is tough. Not only it's time-consuming, but it costs money. But this has allowed us to work more closely and on an extended period of time, particularly with architects. Nate Ember here with Inkbuilt is one of the companies that we're working with to develop a product line so that people can go on our website and see firsthand what we can build. And since we're a custom builder, we can also design anything you want, but it's always nice to start with a base product that we've priced out, and we can at least say, well, here's what might work for your site, here's what it might cost, and how long it would take. And as we've been working with architects, we realize we need to work with contractors and developers, and a recurring theme today has been teamwork, and we really believe that it's essential that the factory, GC, architect, developer, funder, the entire team works very closely together to try to reduce those scope gaps, stay aligned and focused on the project mission. And you really do need a facilitator or a decision maker to help take advantage of modular. If you want the project to go fast, then decision making is crucial.
Thank you. Have any of you worked in other, I know the answer to this, and I shouldn't have made this part of my question, but none of you edited it out. Have any of you seen or learned a little bit about how the modular business is happening in other states or even other countries? Modular, and I keep shorthanding it. I do mean factory-built housing, both manufactured and modular. Is there something out there that you've seen somebody else is doing, you think, you know what, that could work in Oregon? Terry, go ahead.
Well, Karen, I think you're the first modular project funded in the state of Oregon, aren't you, for this type of construction? Because most of the plants are in Idaho, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, okay. And this is, of course, based on a lot of this has been based upon the Swedish model that was put out in the 1990s. Valhall was a product of that particular technology in Sweden back in the 1990s, where they had an assembly plant actually in North Eugene, which failed. It was sponsored by Herb Nils' family. But the modular construction type has been, I think, something that the state of Oregon has been looking at getting in state for a long time, and that's one of the reasons why you got funded, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it? Besides, you're great. Okay. Okay.
I think they chose us for funding because we are an established factory, so we have a head start. We've got the equipment, and we have 160 employees and a large facility. Doesn't mean that we can build right away. We needed to have a product line in place and a starting point. And we prefer, it's always better for the project if the land is ready when the mods are built so that they're not sitting for months or years.
Yeah. So back to the mobile home side of things, or the manufactured housing side, we've been blessed in Oregon to have multiple vendors out there, especially around Albany, that have been manufacturing for years. And so as a result of that, those manufacturers continue to serve all of our region. Everything from Clayton to Fleetwood and the rest of them up there, Palm Harbor and so forth. They're very good. They're very good builders, and they're quite capable of doing this business. The trick is that the amount of demand for this type of housing, both modular and manufactured housing, continues to escalate because of the disasters that we're having around us. And so I think that the path is pretty clear that the more of that local manufacturing that we can bring into the state, the better off we're going to be.
Right, I think that's true, and I'll use this moment to mention a bill that is awaiting its fate in the Oregon legislative Ways and Means process. I've been checking my email. House Bill 3145 would create a set-aside of some of the LIFT dollars to create 5 pilot projects around the state and provide some technical assistance for those project sponsors and developers. It's an attempt to sort of scale and prove out what we think is possible because of what we've seen in Idaho and, frankly, Europe, Sweden, and elsewhere. We are not familiar with it as a state. Our consumers don't understand the product, and again, there's some stigma associated, not warranted anymore, in my opinion. But there are we need to, if we're going to take advantage of what's possible with factory-built housing, we need to be able to scale that. But nobody's going to produce a bunch of units if there's not demand. And so there's a little chicken and egg piece here. So this state bill, House Bill 3145, would create the funding and the technical assistance mechanism to be able to prove this out as a technology in various pockets of the state. Karen?
Margaret, if I might, I wanted to add sort of a historic point to both manufacturing as well as modular construction here in the state. And it's really this. Blazer has a history of producing. And as modular construction became increasingly popular, more and more people got into it, a lot of them have also failed, and they are gone. And Blazer has been here throughout. And really, Kendra, I'll say that we're lucky to have that kind of capacity here in this state, because a lot of them have come and gone over these last 15 years, at least that I've been tracking it. Same thing with manufactured homes for mobile manufacturing. If you look at the recession in 2007, 2008, 2009, most of them shuttered their doors and they did not come back. And we are lucky to have the capacity that Terry McDonald brings to this state to not only do all of the low-income and affordable housing projects that he's done in his former life, but to build new capacity for manufacturing mobile homes today, or manufactured homes today. So just a point here about around Oregon history and Oregon's manufacturing durability in our long-term companies.
So I think it might be time to turn to audience Q&A. Everybody good with that? All right. Do you have a question for any of these panelists? I see one over here. Terrific.
Hi. What are the limitations for modular housing, and what is the size of the module?
Limitations and size of boxes.
The limitation has to do with transport, and it varies a little bit from state to state. Essentially, the module, with the finishes included, has to be under 16 feet wide. We can transport, I believe in Oregon you can transport up to 74 feet long. We prefer to keep it to 65 or 70. And 13'2" from the bottom of the module to the finished top of the module has to be under 13'2". Obviously, the wider you get, the more expensive. So a 12-foot wide mod is less expensive to ship than a 16-footer.
Yeah, but could you talk a little bit about how you build this together? So it's not like a double wide. It's not like you can only restrict yourself to one floor, right?
Yeah, we can stack. Blazer has built a couple of 3-story multifamily projects. We've built a lot of 2-story projects through the years, and you can connect them vertically or horizontally. There are lots of different options and arrangements to design. It's best to work with us. That's why we're in the early design stages, so that we can ensure that that you can design something within budget without too much complexity, that can travel down the road and be assembled fairly easily.
Okay. Who else has something? Good, I see. I'm going to 1, 2, and then you'll be 3. Wait, which one of you was it? Thank you. There you go.
Hi, Ryan again, blue shirt guy. The question I get often with my clients is, when is that price point shift from stick-built to modular? And if I talk to a contractor, there's one. If I talk to a modular, there's another. So what's your price point or scale where that balance goes towards modular being more efficient?
It might depend on the part of the state, if we're just talking about Oregon. So there can be a price advantage and a time advantage in rural areas. We built a 20 module project for Blue River out on the McKenzie that's fairly remote. So it made a lot of sense in many ways to build in a factory and ship to a location. It's difficult to, we're about the same, sometimes a little bit higher than site construction because we have to add the transport and the setup. And so it's really a matter of penciling out the project and seeing which one makes the most sense.
Okay, and you had one?
Hi, just a brief question. You mentioned manufactured housing. Well, you mentioned manufactured housing being now appreciable, and that is the first I've heard of that possibility. As I've always just heard that it's like a vehicle. Once you buy it, it depreciates. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Anybody up there want to talk about it? Or since I raised it, do you want me to?
Well, so, if you think about how manufactured housing was built, it was in response to World War II, and there was no building style or there was no code associated with it. So people just put up whatever they could get a roof on, and they were called mobile homes, and they never were intended to be permanent. You come to the late 60s and early 70s, and these are becoming permanent housing out in a lot of mobile home parks, which were developed in floodplains and places where they shouldn't be in the first place. And suddenly HUD comes out in 76 and says, well, we got to do something different. We can't just put these things together with, gum and spit. So at that point, you start creating a code associated with it, the HUD code for developing these things. That changed in 95. It's changed again this year. And so basically the construction type you're seeing in the mobile home industry, the manufactured housing industry, is the standard 2x6 construction on 16-inch centers and the standard roof pattern. And the insulation is particularly robust because these guys are breathing down my neck to get to NEAMS Plus, which we do.
I know you do.
So, basically what you've got now is a stick house on a frame. And then the last thing is, well, can you put it on a foundation as well? And of course, that's been designed into it. So that's the story of how we arrived at what we're at now in terms of housing development associated with manufactured housing. It is housing. It's a house.
And I'll offer, there's a national nonprofit called Next Step US. Some of you may have heard of Next Step US. They are experts in manufactured housing. They've been studying this for a handful of years, and I think they have some market studies about the rates of appreciation. And so if you want to dig into the data a little bit more, I would start with Next Step US. And I think you'll find that they've published some interesting information. Are you my next questioner? There you go.
That's John again. So I have an offer of an idea for you people in the idea business. Of course, she's talking now, but that's okay. So in the idea business, I thought of a Peltier effect that could be incorporated into a modular building. Have you ever seen a Peltier effect, PN junction cooling and heating system? Okay, that's all I'm going to say for now.
Of course you do. Somebody raised their hand over here. There you go.
What's the difference in the maintenance of a stick-built versus a modular? And then what is the difference with insurance? As far as I know, there's no difference.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Margaret, might I just want to
Please.
say a few, just around manufacturing in general. So the focus of this is around housing production, right? Let's get a lot of new units out there. I am 100% for that. At the same time, I am old enough to know that a lot of the things that were built in the past are no longer with us, or are no longer really habitable in the way that we would want them to be 50 or 60 years later. So when we're building, I like to think about maybe four aspects. One is that the construction is durable and maybe resilient, so that the construction of our homes is both durable, which reduces this sort of ongoing maintenance nightmare that so many of us are living with older, not very well-built homes, and resilient, so that we're capable of facing sort of the climate disasters that are increasingly prevalent. The second thing would be, for me, I told you I have opinions on everything, but I am an old public health person, so I know from where I speak. The second thing is that the materials of construction are safe and healthful for us. The third thing would be indoor air quality, and indoor air quality that we can maintain during adverse events like wildfire smoke inundation. And then the last thing is affordability. We need these homes to be affordable, that we can achieve by building them in this way and making them energy efficient, so that we are not wasting money paying for energy that we didn't need to use in the first place if the home had been built more efficiently. So, and I appreciate the chance to go through that, but I also really am grateful for that question.
Again, I think there's misconceptions out there, and some of that, for me, it contributes to this idea that we, if these sectors are going to scale, we're going to need consumer demand. It's not enough for policy wonks like me to say, it's great, or for Kendra to say, I can build 600 or 1,000 homes in a year if there's not demand for it. And one of the things I've identified, as I say, as I've been kind of a student of this business and the supply chains, is that that kind of misconceptions of what it is are real. And whoever's in charge, I don't know who that is, we need to get smarter about how we communicate and the benefits. And I will say, I'm going to have Kendra in a minute tee up and talk about a project in Talent. Did you just raise your hand? In Talent that she's setting yesterday and today. But
sorry, before you do that, can I just add something? Okay, so as more folks experiment with modular or manufactured housing, it's going to help bring down the construction cost tremendously. And this is going to be something, some manufacturer options particularly means mass timbers have long-term cost savings due to the durability of the materials, and it's mainly, we have the project that we did in Trillium Estates. The average cost of the home there was about $253,000 versus this we just did, and that was 77 spaces, right? Whereas we did a 34-unit affordable housing complex at the same time in Medford, and that was about $366 per square foot. That's a big difference. I think more money should be going over to homeownership, and particularly where the homes in Trillium Estates are all NEEM rated. Yep. And NEEM, I can't pronounce that. NEEM. And also they are very high energy efficient, as well as they have the high fire rating system.
Yeah, we're just having a sidebar over here. Karen. Yeah, there you go. All right. So I've got an old manufactured home on a property. Can I get a free new one through the Energy Trust? Yes. Okay. All right. So, yeah, Karen, let's talk, and Kendra, and yeah, let's all get together.
Yeah, you heard me. You hear me. I'm kind of joking, but the person that you want to talk with is sitting right there, Nikki.
Every time she stands up, there's an applause.
Right? Yeah. So there's a lot of shades of gray, and it'll depend on qualifications and a myriad of other things. But I'm not the expert in this. All I know is that many, many years ago, when I worked for Margaret, I started a project for replacing manufactured homes that were dilapidated, and that was really largely the foundation of this reiteration of being able to join forces across agencies, work together with the big cooperative table, and boy, partnerships. There's nothing more important in housing development than partnerships, and that's how you get the funding that makes it. That puts enough of the money on the table to make that transition possible. So Nikki's going to be the key to what is available and what you'll qualify for. Yeah, good on you. I went through it myself. I mean, not a replacement, but an old manufactured home.
So I love manufactured homes. I was born into a single wide, and then we moved into a double wide with a round kitchen. It was the most amazing thing. My brother and sister and I talk about it all the time. And it's still inhabited, actually. Not by us, but by somebody else. It's been through several families.
So the question that I have for the panel is in regards to, we've been talking about needing to scale, increasing demand, right? So that education piece in terms of dispelling some of the myths that may exist around modular or manufactured housing. What I'm wondering though, also I think to scale, especially when it comes to affordable housing, replacing some of the housing that was lost in talent, et cetera, down here in Southern Oregon, has to do with financing. I mean, we're talking about these homes that no longer cost $15,000, right? As they did 40, 50 years ago. And we still have barriers when it comes to banks being willing to lend on housing unless you own the land under the house, right? And I think the majority, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the majority of modular housing, at least right now, is in a manufactured park, right? Where folks don't own the land. So even if they want to replace their home or if they want to buy a home, they still can't get a loan for it. And I'm just wondering what's going on and how can we minimize that barrier?
Well, Kendra can speak to this, but modular housing almost always is loanable because it's on a foundation, and whoever owns the foundation probably owns the land. So that's that. Modular or mobile home or manufactured housing generally is in the park, where you either have a foundation or you don't. But having said that, it's in a park that's owned by somebody else, and that's where you're talking about the financing. The financing difference, of course, is whether it's FHA qualified or not. The FHA qualification comes if you own the land. So if you own the land and you've got this thing going up, you qualify for an FHA-backed loan, which any commercial institution can get you. If you're going to get something that you don't own the land and it's considered a vehicle, which is what chattel housing is, that's what manufactured housing is considered, a chattel. It's a nice way of saying a car. Then you're going to have to go to the secondary market unless you own the land. And the secondary market is generally anywhere from 200 to 300 basis points higher.
So financing is a real problem. I do know that Fannie Mae is doing something in the financing realm when it comes to resident-owned communities, but I don't know if that extends to the home buyers or just to the parks. I don't know if anybody, if you know the answer to that, if the Fannie Mae product meets that. It does? 100, okay. Okay, yeah, right. Yeah. You can. You can get financing. You can get financing for a resident-owned community through an. I don't know the answer to that, but we're going to make a note of that question, and next time we have a panel, we're going to include that. Oh, you don't want to just admire the problem? Hang on. Did you have I got a question here. Hang on.
I just want to say, so thank you very much for being here today. I just had a quick question in terms of, we're talking about production, and if Blazer is one of the ones that is actually manufacturing for everybody else, what is the sweet spot where you actually have to take your whole model and build somewhere else to be actually producing?
Good question. We're trying to figure that out. Right now we're mixing residential and commercial, which is good and bad. It helps us navigate ups and downs in the economy. It's really helped us out the past couple of years. But what we would like to do is get to full capacity. Our factory took a hit during the recession and then during the pandemic, and we really haven't built up our workforce as much as we would like to be full capacity. For example, we're framing, let's say, 2 modules per day in one of our facilities. We would like to be up to 3, possibly more. It depends on the complexity of the mods. So let's say we can complete 400 mods per year. We should be really building 600 if we had a fully functional workforce. The code cycles can cause us issues. State of Oregon is really great to work with. It's pretty easy for us to get our plans approved through the state. And then, of course, you have to deal with whatever timeline the local jurisdictions require. When we're building for the state of Washington, the plan review time period might be 12 weeks versus 1 or 2 weeks in Oregon. So Oregon's really does a great job in that way. It's the pre-production sometimes that slows us down and slows down actual construction. Like somebody talked about, factories are just risky. So to dedicate a factory fully to modular housing is tricky. We don't know the answer to how to do that. Even if you talk to any of the mobile home manufacturers that only build homes, it's a real cyclical business. And they do have to lay off people and shut down their plants for periods of time. And we've been lucky enough to not have to do that.
I'm getting the sign. That is the sign that the door is opening. There's more we could talk about. I really appreciate your interest. Thank you for coming to this panel. And could you please join me in thanking our panel for sharing their knowledge? I think there's going to be like a raffle
Margaret?
or something in a minute.
Sorry,
Yeah, go ahead, Rosie. Sorry.
Before we close,
Rosie has one more thing.
One more thing to say. So I just want to highlight the importance of engaging local community-based organizations in the communities themselves in the design and construction process. This not only drives innovation, but also helps community grow and thrive. Also, we cannot ignore the needs of the communities we serve. Otherwise, we are creating housing in a vacuum that may or may not meet the needs of the people we are trying to serve.
Thank you. Well said, Rosie.